have learned from 25 years of not working and 20 years of meditation and self-inquiry that the world is not what we think it is. There are forces in this world that are deceptions, and these forces are keeping us enslaved to ideologies that are untrue because they are not part of a reality that we were all created in, that is our birthright. And so these deceptions create a false reality, one we have been taught to believe is true. There is a reality of the world that we are making for ourselves through our beliefs, and there is the reality that is where truth has its only meaning, one that we are all created in. Reality that was created for us is completely unlike the reality we are making for ourselves. One was created in love, and the other was made from fear. Yet we are taught from early on, at a young age, that these deceptions are serving us and are for our own good. By doing this, we learn to value something that is actually hurting us, and we are willing to defend what would but imprison us. We therefore become our own slave masters, demanding the enslavement of others because we ourselves are enslaved. The purpose of these videos is to help free ourselves from the many deceptions happening in this world. If we truly want peace and freedom, we must know where the barriers to peace and freedom really lie, not just where we want them to be. We are taught that the barriers to peace and freedom lie within others, who we have been taught are our enemies. But this is simply a false belief, one made to keep us in fear, to keep everyone divided. To find where the true barriers to peace and freedom lie, we must desire to know the truth. That only the truth be true, and that illusions are not true. We have been taught that illusions are true, and this is what we must be willing to undo. One main difference between truth and illusion is that truth is reasonable because it is part of sanity. Reality is highly intelligent, whereas illusions are unreasonable because they lack reality, and so they lack sanity, which makes them insane. If we genuinely seek for truth, we must be willing to see things as they are, without distorting them to fit our own preferences. If something is clearly reasonable, it is because it is aligned to reality, which is a wholeness. If something is clearly unreasonable, it is because it is lacking in sanity and therefore cannot be understood wholly. Reality is understood as a whole, yet deceptions only seem to be understandable when they are divided into parts. When they are brought together, they simply become meaningless. This approach gives us the power to make real choices that can lead to real change. It is impossible to accept certain illusions as true and still expect to understand what truth is, which is simply the truth of reality. When we treat illusions as if they are true, we attempt to redefine reality into something that it is not. In doing so, we lose our ability to separate truth from deception and reality from illusion. By blending the two, we ultimately lose the meaning of both. Real freedom requires a commitment to see the truth as it is. Truth is that we are all created free because we are all created the same, and that everything has been given to us because of our sameness. Sameness is what makes oneness possible, which is the meaning of wholeness. So why aren't we seeing this in our world? And why does our world look so unreasonable? I have been creating videos about money and governments, drawing from my inner journeys through my meditations that have led me to an understanding of our true nature, a nature that is beyond this physical world. We are not merely our physical bodies. Understanding our spiritual nature, which goes beyond the physical world, will give us a greater understanding of this world, how it works, and how we are making the world we see through our beliefs. However, we each hold different beliefs and are at varying stages of understanding. Yet ultimately we do share the same truth within us, which means that at the level of truth we will all see the same thing because we do share the same reality. Seeing outside of reality, we are but seeing illusions of our own making. The world is deceiving us only because we are asking to be deceived, yet we do not know that this is what we are doing to ourselves. Through exploring these topics, I aim to share insights on how our spiritual identity relates to social structures and how it does not. Is it reasonable that some pay more tax and some pay less, and others who have the most pay nothing? Most people remain unaware of how much tax they actually pay, or where this money ultimately goes. We are led to believe that tax serves our best interests, funding essential social services and programs designed to improve society. But a closer look at the tax system tells a very different story, revealing a structure that may do less to support public welfare and more to increase the cost of everyday life, which keeps us bound to working. Minds caught up in the busyness of survival simply lack the motivation for self-inquiry. Nearly everything we buy has taxes embedded within its price, significantly raising its cost to the consumer. For example, a supplier incurs numerous taxes, such as import duties, customs fees, excise taxes on raw materials, property taxes, payroll taxes, transport tax, fuel tax, and then there are the taxes on profits. These costs, along with value-added tax on the final product, are passed to the manufacturer. The manufacturer then pays additional taxes on operations, payroll, property, transport, fuel, extra taxes on regulated products, as well as once again tax on profits. These tax layers are ultimately transferred to the retailer, who in turn must pay payroll tax, property tax, transport tax, fuel tax, charge sales tax and other fees, all of which are factored into the final retail price. Each stage of the production and sales chain, taxes compound on each other, with the final price to the consumer reflecting all these costs. This cycle inflates the price of goods and services dramatically, making daily life significantly more expensive than it might otherwise be without these layers of hidden taxation. For working individuals, the tax system takes a substantial toll. Middle-income earners often pay around 30% of their income in tax, with higher earners seeing even greater rates. And taxes don't stop with income. Licensing fees, property taxes, other reoccurring costs eat away at a household's purchasing power. Beyond direct income tax, the prices of everyday goods are inflated by the taxes paid by suppliers, manufacturers, and retailers. At the lower end, a product that might cost $10 to make may ultimately be sold for $100 and more, a markup largely due to the taxes built into every step of the production and distribution. At the higher end, an item that may cost $10 to produce could easily end up at a price of $1,000 or more. Even savings are not spared. Interest earned on savings is taxed, while inflation and currency devaluation, driven by government debt and banking practices like interest, further reduce the value of money over time, constantly eating away at our savings. When people invest in property, they pay taxes on the purchase, ongoing property taxes and potential capital gains taxes when they sell, often finding that the increase in property value has barely outpaced inflation, which ultimately means that one cannot afford to buy something similar without adding extra money. Licensing and transaction fees in real estate are yet another tax-like burden. Even at the end of life, taxes continue to affect individuals and their families. Inheritance tax and estate tax reduce what people can leave to their children, creating a generational cycle of wealth erosion. These taxes ensure that each generation must start anew, largely preventing wealth accumulating and maintaining the cycle of work and tax dependency. Meanwhile, those with significant wealth have access to legal loopholes and tax strategies that allow them to shelter income, defer taxes, and structure their finances through trusts, offshore accounts, and other tax-efficient vehicles. In contrast, average citizens face rigid tax codes without the same options for relief. As most people work upwards of 40 hours a week, maybe 90% of their earnings are diverted into taxes directly or indirectly, and yet despite this substantial collective effort, our societies do not reflect this high public investment. Consider this: if 100 people work just 40 hours a week, within a month they could produce several well-built homes. In 2 years, every person could have a home, meeting a basic human need that alleviates many other life's stresses. With secure housing, people's needs become simpler and the need for work would be greatly reduced. Yet billions of people are forced to spend their whole lives working just to survive, just as their parents were and their parents before them. For generations, people have been enslaved into a system that steals their wealth and keeps the future of their children bound to be enslaved. So where is all this time and money really going? It is clear to see that it is not going into the well-being of society. Taxation, as it exists, functions less as a system for public welfare and more as a mechanism that reinforces social inequalities. By diverting vast resources into complex layered taxes, society becomes strained under the financial and the psychological pressures, resulting in a cycle of dependency and disillusionment, creating physical and mental sickness like depression, thereby guaranteeing the flow of wealth into the health industry, the industries of war, policing, construction, fuel, food and land. Ultimately, the question remains, does the current tax system truly reflect our collective effort? A look at global social and economic inequalities suggests that taxes often fund large organizations and industries entangled with government themselves, such as defense, construction, social policing, the justice system, healthcare, all at inflated prices that do not result in a better outcome for society. When 80% or more of the time and money that people are forced to work merely to survive goes into the coffers of the various governments through enforced taxes, it is clear to see that this amount of effort from humanity is certainly not reflected in our society's well-being. One must remember that taxes are forced upon society and are enforced by laws and by the threat of punishment. Imprisonment and fines are both forms of torture. To threaten violence upon another is a form of evil and is not a part of love. A loving creator does not torture his creations, does not torture his children, demanding their slavery. It is evil which does this, because evil is the god of deception and hate, and it is hate that enslaves and tortures. It is necessary to see all deceptions as they are, so that they can be judged truly. It is only by hiding them away in darkness and in secrecy that evil is maintained. What we bring into our awareness, we bring into the light of knowledge. We don't have to do anything except become aware of all the barriers that block the awareness of who we are, that are the barriers to peace, freedom, and to the love of our Creator, one who gives only and does not take away.